sessions. We have Darshana Sanghavi here with us. Darshana, please introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Firstly, thanks for inviting me to this podcast. I've been following this series since I think you've started, and I think it's a great initiative. So, congratulations to you on that
Thank you.
first.
Thank you.
So a little bit about myself. So, I basically have a finance background. I'm a finance professional. I also have done my Chartered Global Management Accounting from UK, and I started my work by joining one of the big fours with statutory audit more than 23 years ago, actually. I realized very early on that, okay, this is not something that I want to do. It's a post-mortem, decided to move to industry, worked with a couple of multinationals in different finance positions, and in the last manufacturing company that I worked with, which is an American multinational, I ended up being a end user submitting data to HFM for all the plants which were in India under my control. So that is how my tryst with EPM started. The next thing I know, I decided that, okay, enough of finance. It was just long, grueling hours on the manufacturing side. It's a thankless job, because you're looked at a cost as a cost center and not contributing to the
Mm.
organization. And I was like, okay, you know what? I want a Saturday, Sunday off, 9 to 5 routine. Let me jump to IT, and I joined United Technologies in their finance systems team in India. So I was their first employee in that team. And the only consideration which they had is, okay, and you can spell HFM, and that's good enough, like as an end user. So because at that time it was like hardly people knew about Hyperion so
Yeah.
much, right?
Yeah.
So I joined their financial systems team. I recollect a few podcasts earlier, you had Peter Fugere on your
Yes.
podcast,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
got an opportunity to work on my first project itself with Peter. And that was an interesting opportunity, actually. And that's how I kind of moved from the other end of the table to the consulting side of things, but still as part of the organization. So I was part of the in house team, right? And did some really interesting work over there on the Hyperion side. And in the meantime, I was always looking at starting something of my own. Basically, it was just that I had
Mm.
not realized what is it that I really like to do, and what is it that interests me. But after spending a couple of years doing HFM implementations, I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. And one fine day, I left UTC and I started my own company.
Fantastic.
And fast forward I will fast forward to, I think, 2018. And then I was already doing OneStream by that time. And yes, and then joined, came in touch with other OneStream partners. Met with BI Solutions and one of the partners in BI Solutions in Europe, and we decided to join hands. And then in August 2021, we had another merger where we then had Archeum EPM, which was also a diamond partner like us, and then we rebranded ourselves to AMCO Solutions, and that's where we are. So
Oh,
that's
yes.
that's a very in a very short
Yeah.
journey description of where we.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. So this is a question I ask everybody really because we work in a very specialized industry. It's not very easy to explain it to others outside our industry, especially our family. Still have unsuccessful with my mom to explain exactly what I do. So have you had any humorous misconceptions what exactly you do or and how in terms of EPM?
Yeah. Yeah, so typically, when you talk about EPMS finance systems, right? I mean, that's one of the easier ways to talk about it.
Mm.
And then people think about ERPs, right? So yes, it's not easy to explain EPM to non-finance folks. So one of the things which I always try to say is, okay, yeah, we work closely with organizations to help them meet their deadlines, to get a better hold on
Mm.
their numbers, and to have a better understanding of what they do. And we set up the platform where they can do this, basically, right?
Sure.
So yeah, just to try to keep it simple. Otherwise, yeah, it's consulting in financial systems, and leave it at that. But
Yeah,
yes, it is not easily understood,
yeah,
and it's very difficult also for you to explain it to others. So I have given up on
definitely.
that a while ago.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So, what's been your biggest challenge in EPM and the solutions you've done in order to overcome them?
So very early on, actually, I think instead of challenges, I look at it as opportunities, right?
Sure.
So
Yes.
very early on, I got some interesting opportunities, which sometimes it's very rare for consultants to get, and I got them multiple times. So I
Sure.
think till date, I have had the opportunity of being part of the largest HFM implementations till date, including anywhere between 2,500 entities, 3,500 users.
Sure.
Or when I went to SAP BOFC, which was called as, the Cartesis
Yes, I
business
remember
objects,
completely.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So did that, and did had about, I think that was also a very large project,
Mm.
1,800 entities, 1,800 users,
Wow.
2,300 entities, right? So yeah,
Wow,
like
that's big.
large scale projects,
Mm.
yes.
Yeah.
And also I think an opportunity to work in different countries.
Yes.
So though originally I am from India, I have rarely worked with companies based in India. Most of, like, actually 95% of what we do is with companies based outside India. And I've been living in Singapore for a while now.
Nice.
So yeah, so I've worked in Europe, have worked in UK,
Yeah.
worked in the US, Singapore, of course, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. So yeah, it's I think some of
Yeah.
these opportunities have been quite interesting. The other
Yes.
aspect is around the breadth of the different business processes that I have had an opportunity to work on, right? So typically, what you will see is if somebody's doing consolidation, they will stick to consolidation, or if somebody's doing planning and
Mm.
budgeting, they will stick to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
side of the things. I think I was very open to look at it more from a business process perspective and
Mm.
not
Mm.
necessarily focus on an application kind of a background perspective, right?
Mhm.
So when I was working on Hyperion, I started right from Hyperion Enterprise
All right.
to 9.3 to like on the entire on-prem for Hyperion, whether it is
Mhm.
HFM, planning, S-base,
Sure.
profitability, cost management, strategic finance. You'll laugh at this. Crystal
Yeah.
ball, disclosure
I remember
management.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
all of those. And then at some point, it all moved to the cloud. So then started working on all of those, tax provisioning,
Sure.
you name it, and a DRM,
Yeah.
FDM,
Yeah,
I've done
yeah.
it all, right?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
And then Anaplan, SAP BPC, SAP BFC, and then finally OneStream.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I kind of decided to look at it like it was obviously very challenging because I don't have a technology background to start
Sure.
with,
Yeah.
right? But I kind of looked at it as an opportunity to learn another tool, another platform out there, and kind
Completely.
of focus more on the business processes and then kind of, see how everything kind of can work together. So, yeah, I think that's kind of, been my approach so far.
Fantastic. Really good with that. Could you share with us a success story you've had in EPM?
Um, I think implementation so far, which is a
Sure.
good
Fantastic.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think maybe instead of like, I think what matters is, okay, what do you focus on to get that successful?
Sure.
A lot of it is kind of to do with your understanding of the business and your understanding of the processes. So to kind of take a step back and to talk about, why I got interested in moving on the other side of the table and, setting up my own and kind of, going from there is because I saw the pain as a user, what I was going through.
Yeah,
Right,
of
it would
course.
be really painful to kind of submit numbers, and then even on the
Mm,
ERP side, I had to fix things when in when I was working as a controller, for instance. And I was like, okay, if I have to fix systems, I rather build it myself, right?
sure.
And that was a driving force for me. One of the things which I kind of always tell as kind of as a passing reference is, when we are talking, when business is telling to the consultants about what their expectations are, what they are describing is apples. What the consultant
Mhm.
hears is an orange. And eventually what gets delivered is a grape. And that, I think that
Yeah,
disconnect, right? So I think
yeah,
having an understanding of both on the finance side and on the IT side, I think it's important to
completely.
ensure
Yeah,
that it is a success. The other aspect is the cultural aspect, right? Different users, different geographies, culturally, it's very different. And I think if you get an experience very early on to work with a varied group of users, that's good as well. The third thing is, I think, about the project management methodology, right?
right.
Agile is kind of a very in thing, but
Mm,
I like to kind of I think waterfall plus agile works well. I
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
I do not think I would be very comfortable to see if my requirements keep on moving every 2 weeks, kind of a thing.
sure, sure.
So a combination of those. So yeah, so kind of adding to that, some of like to talk back about some of the projects and some large scale projects that I've got an opportunity to kind of be a part of and lead some of these projects, right? I think what has contributed is one of the things is we have to put in a lot of hours to ensure that you meet the timelines. And
Yes,
that
yes.
is something which many times is not in your control, and
No,
it's
of course.
about how you try to ensure that you still meet those timelines and kind of take the whole team along, not only at your end but also at the client end, and
Mm,
kind of move from there. um, and the sometimes it's about also the quality of the data,
yeah,
right? I
yes,
think
yes.
people underestimate that a lot.
Yeah.
It's assumed that, oh, everything was working before and then everything will continue to work later. But
Oh,
when it
yeah.
is not just a lift and shift, it's a different conversation altogether, right? So, yeah, I think the fact that having done very large projects very early
Yeah,
on, then you're not too much worried about, you know,
yeah.
doing other projects, I guess. So, yeah, I think that's how I kind of look at it.
Cool, cool. What's the most rewarding aspect of your EPM career that you feel?
Interesting question. What I like the most is that you are not bound to a specific industry. You can work across
Mm,
industries, you can work across geographies, you can work across businesses, you can work across teams within a particular organization, right?
mm,
And I find that very interesting
yeah,
because what we are seeing now in the last 5 to 7 years is very different business models are evolving. The startup scenes or
yeah,
the new age companies which you have, right? They have a very different model than what you used to see in the traditional
sure.
way.
Yeah,
And that opportunity to kind of work with the new age companies and to kind of learn their business practices, how they are seeing the market, how they are scaling up, right? And seeing how that has an implication on what you are doing, I think I find that very interesting.
okay.
So
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
very,
so
very cool.
working across, yeah, it doesn't matter whether it is banking or manufacturing or oil and gas, insurance. I think I think it's very rarely that you would get an opportunity to work across industries.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree.
yeah,
I agree,
EPM
definitely.
CPM gives me that space for sure.
No, it's very rewarding in that sense. So, uh, it's a light-hearted question here. So, have you got any kind of humorous or unexpected moments in your career that you can share
Uh,
with us?
Quite a few.
Yeah,
I remember in this one instance where so there was this organization where the balance sheet was about $100 billion plus of in balance
Wow.
sheet terms, right? Huge organization. We would have anywhere between 3 to 5 acquisitions in a month, and we were setting up those systems, and then we had kind of gone live. There were a lot of people working and as administrators on the system, and
Mm,
the
mm.
closing process started, and I was kind of just there supporting them for the closing process. And I saw on, I think, day 2 or day 3 that my balance sheet is out by $15 billion.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
Uh,
how does that happen, right?
yeah,
And this was something which I kind of pointed out to their team. So they had a great team, right? They had about 18, 20 people, all coming from big fours, large organizations, very
sure.
experienced. I was the only consultant as such on that project.
Yeah.
And I kind of, told them that, okay, I see a red flag, $15 billion difference. And they're like, no, 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 everything looks okay. You are unnecessarily getting stressed out. I said, okay, good luck. It's your balance sheet. Um, and yeah, and then this was something which was pointed out by the auditors in the audit committee. So the auditors
Yeah.
also waited till that moment to point this out. And by that time, I had already done my analysis and figured out, okay, why there is a difference coming, because I knew this was
Yeah.
going to come up. But
Yeah.
it was a funny one. So when they
No.
rushed to back to me that, hey, you were talking about this 15 billion, so 5 days later, they are like, okay, where is it? I thought it doesn't matter, $100 billion balance sheet, 15 billion here and there, not material enough. But that was a funny one, but yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. Definitely, I agree. So, you're an entrepreneur, you started your own company and you've grown it. What's been your inspiration to do all this?
I think maybe first of all, it is in my genes, I guess. I always wanted to do something of my own to start with.
Yeah,
It was just that I was waiting to figure out what is the right space I want to be in, because one of the things is that, okay, you really want, I mean, it's great if you love something that you're doing, because then you can continue for a longer time frame, right? And I think
sure.
it's been almost what, like 19 plus years that I've been in the space. So
Sure, yeah.
that's a long time. But I think the biggest motivation for me was the fact that, okay, I could influence the way projects can be run. I can influence the decision of customers, right? And I can also influence the quality of deliverables. And
Yes,
the pain points which I had gone through when I was on the other side of the table as a user, I wanted to see how I can eliminate some of those pain points, right?
sure.
So I think that was my biggest motivation to say that, okay, do I really want to do this? And kind of, will
Mm,
I enjoy doing this? And
sure.
then the rest kind of followed from there.
Okay, cool. So, the industry's changing a lot. There's a lot of things happening at the moment and has happened in the past. How do you keep abreast of all the things that's going on? What's your kind of research methodology, all this stuff?
So I like to read stuff all the time,
Okay.
and just find out what's happening, in the technology space, in the business space, in economics, in politics, in the world at large, basically,
Yes.
right? Because you always see
Yeah.
something influencing something
Sure.
else. And one of the things which became very apparent to me very early on is that technologies can keep evolving, and
Hmm.
we need to be on the cusp of the next wave, basically. Otherwise, we are going to be kind of left behind. And I think being an entrepreneur and leading a team, that gives you that added responsibility as well, on one hand. But on the other hand, it's also this opportunity to look at, okay, what's coming
Sure.
up next, and how can we be at the forefront of that change, basically,
Of course.
right?
Yes, yes.
Uh, as you would be aware, you would also have noticed that in the last 7 years, the pace at which the changes have come has been much faster and much
Yes,
more accelerated than what it used to
exactly.
be, like, 10 years
Completely.
ago. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
So that is, I think that is something which is always on my mind. I'm always looking at what's happening. And
Yes.
then you have and in the industry you have leaders, including yourself, and then we are always looking at, okay, what everybody's talking about, what people are
Mm,
doing. Also, one of the other things is this, that EPM as such is a very close
yes.
knitted, tight community, right? So you
Yes,
would
it is.
typically know a lot of people who are doing something similar to what you're doing. They could be in different locations working on different products or technologies, basically, but typically doing the same thing. And I like to be in touch with them to just kind of, always exchange ideas around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly, I like to kind of try to see how I can connect the dots on what's happening in general in the technology space, and be it AI, ML, big data, etc., and how we can, leverage it for customers, because yeah, data is the new oil. So I
It
think we are
is. Yeah.
fortunate that we are able to manage that. We are able to help
Yes.
companies manage that.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then how can they get the most value out of what they are doing? I think it's good. Also, I think it's important because when you are talking to organizations, they have a large team of people,
Yes.
be it in the IT side, be it on the finance side, be it on the business side. And it's important for you to be updated so that you can have a knowledgeable and a conversation at the same length, I guess. So
Sure.
yeah, I think that's how I look at it.
Cool. So you've been very successful in career. You're at the top of your career at the moment. What would be your key advice for beginners, also ladies who are trying to come into the industry or trying to learn? What would be your kind of advice, take back for them to understand a bit more?
Okay. I think for the newbies who are coming in, doesn't matter whether you are a guy or a girl.
Yes. Yeah.
I think very early on, if you're able to find out if you are liking to do what you're doing, basically, I think that's important for you to stick to something.
Sure.
Um, it's important to kind of invest your time and effort and energy to not only know the technology that you're working on, but also to know on the business side of things, because typically you would either be from a finance or from an IT background, and it is important for each of those folks to know about the other side of things, so
Sure.
that you both are talking the same language, right? Or you can
Yeah.
understand what the business is saying. You can, work with their IT teams or with their business finance teams, as the case may be. One of the other aspects which I think can be quite helpful is, always being aware of what's out there, right? And
Mm,
not just stop at what you know, but kind of
mm.
looking at, okay, how you continue to upskill yourselves.
Sure. Yeah.
And as far as the specifically for the women in technology, like I am an example. I have not learned any technology. And yes, it was learning by doing for me. And like you might find this funny, but I remember when I decided to go off on my own, and that time, if you remember, Tim, we used to do the installation of Hyperion services
Yeah.
on our
Yeah.
laptops, right?
Yeah.
And there would
I
be a
remember.
sequence in which you used to start and stop
Yeah.
services. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, imagine I'm a finance person. I have no clue what SQL is. I don't know what is a schema. I don't know what is TCP IP. I don't know what is a port. I must have
Yeah.
spent 3 months in trying to install Hyperion and the entire stack of Hyperion and make it work.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so now I think we are better off now because we have so much information available. We have so much available things available online, and earlier it was
Mm,
not so easy. So I think now it's much easier to learn some of the things. But yeah, there is no better teacher than doing it yourself, I guess. And I think for the women who want to kind of, embark in technology or continue in that space, I think it's a great space. It
it is.
is
Yeah.
eventually it is going to be your imagination, your observations, and how you
Mm,
look at things, which is going to determine whether you are going to be able to chart a path for yourself or not. And
sure. Yeah.
I would strongly recommend, and I always encourage women, and even in AMCO, it is the same. I always like to
Yes.
encourage the ladies that, okay, yeah, we should do it. Why not? Definitely.
Cool. No, no, thank you for that. So, EPM is evolving. We know it's already evolving very quickly now. What's your take on it? What's going to happen in the next 5 years?
5 years is a long time, Tim. I mean, if you look at what has been happening in the last couple
Yeah,
of years,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Gen AI came out of nowhere, basically,
yeah,
right? So it was always AI was already always talked about, but look at
yeah,
where we are. Look at the pace at which it is being adopted, right?
yes.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't think it would be fair to tell you that, oh, yeah, this is what I think is going to happen in 5 years. I myself
Sure.
am, even after spending 19 years in this space, I am always,
Yeah.
I still have that excitement to know what's coming up next. But
Yes, yes.
definitely, I think some of the areas are definitely the Gen AI, machine learning, how that can
Yeah,
be made a part of the solutions itself, right?
true.
How can
Yeah.
you bring a lot of transactional data with a lot of analytical data and try to kind of, make sense of both of those things together? I
Sure.
think, yeah, and I think, kind of evolving from there. Like, I this is another just a funny take on it. Okay, imagine doing minutes of meetings in an EPM system, right?
Mm,
So yeah, so we have,
yeah.
I mean,
Gosh.
I think one of the things which I find is that, okay, where your imagination stops, it will
Yeah.
stop as to how you will be able to evolve the solution, right?
Sure.
So just being open to ideas and concepts and kind of, being on the lookout of, okay, what's happening. And again, the other thing which I mentioned, okay, you cannot do every project on the face of this earth, but you can learn from others who have done it,
Completely.
and
Yeah.
kind of, exchanging ideas, exchanging notes with your colleagues in other organizations. I think it's a great way to kind of, take this forward. That's how I see it.
Fantastic. Darshana, it's been lovely talking to you. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for your insights and knowledge. We really, really kind of will take back and I'll look, play it back. And there's some things I've kind of learned today too. So thank you so much. And then definitely we'll talk to you in the future again.
Thanks, Tim. It has been great connecting with you again. We have been talking on and off, but it's good to exchange ideas with you on the platform. And, thank you for
Definitely.
your listeners as well.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.